Hey, what's up, friends? It's Ryan, and welcome to another edition of the Studio Sherpas podcast. Today, we are this is such a pleasure for me. I love having the show. You guys have heard me say this so many times, but having the show, it's a great excuse for me to reach out to people who I highly respect, who I've learned a ton from, and today is no different. Today's guest is Allan Dib, who is a #1 best-selling author and author of the book, The One-Page Marketing Plan. Super good book. If you don't have it, please get it. You're going to want it after you listen to this episode. He is a serial entrepreneur, a rebellious marketer, and a technology expert, and has started, grown, and exited multiple businesses in various industries. Allan, it's so good to have you on the show today, man.
Hey, Ryan, pleasure to be on the show.
Hey, where are you calling in from today?
I'm in Melbourne, Australia.
Okay.
And it's Wednesday today, so I'm from the future.
That is awesome. You guys all use that joke, don't you?
Well, I do.
I love it. Well, paint a picture. We'll dive into I think the heart of the one-page marketing plan, but paint a picture for us today. Like, how are you spending your time today when you're not on a podcast with me?
Yeah, so I love the world's best boss mug, eh? It's good. I love The Office.
Yes.
So I spend my days working one-on-one with clients, creating new content. So we've just come out with a course based on the One-Page Marketing Plan book.
Oh, yeah.
So essentially, I've built a system right now in my business where I can concentrate on the stuff that I'm best at, which is coming up with the next ideas, working on new and original content, and working one-on-one with clients. So that's what I spend most of my days on, and I have my team to do a lot of the other boring, routine, operational stuff.
That's the best. That is the best. It was fun listening to. I actually listened to the book. I didn't actually read it. But listening to you kind of talk about, you say, hey, I've followed the experts. I listened to them all. I've learned so much, and I've done my best to take all of the amazing knowledge that all these incredible people have. And here you go. Here's the book. And almost to the fact of like, is it okay if I sign my name to this book? Because like all of us, we have learned from somebody, the stuff that we have. But hearing you name some of the people that you follow, I'm like, yes, this is why I resonate with you so much, because we follow a lot of the same people and we've learned from the same people. So #1, just thank you for the book. I feel like it has been a gift to so many, and I'm sure you hear that all the time.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And look, like I say in the book, I haven't invented direct response marketing. I haven't invented a lot of this stuff. I've packaged it up. I've put it in a way that's really easy and accessible. And I've created that one-page marketing plan canvas, which makes it really, really easy to plug your business into this framework, because it took me the better part of a decade to understand the framework from all the bits and pieces and all the different places. And, I really spent a lot of time writing the book I wish I had when I was first starting out.
Yeah, and it really is that. I was actually reading some of the testimonials on your website about people who also have read it, and people are like, "This is it, man! Like, this is my business Bible." And I feel like it really resonates. It's so good for creatives. We're speaking to our video friends today, and so many of us are so good on the creative side of what we do. And that's, my job here is not to tell people how to shoot or how to edit better, how to tell better stories, but it's really like, hey, you have to do that. Otherwise your business is not going to grow. But also, your business is not going to grow if you don't know how to market, if you don't know how to sell, if you don't know how to focus on the things that need to happen in order for you to be profitable. You have to understand what that even means. So from your perspective, with the people that you've worked with and stuff, what would you say is the thing that most creatives, where do we miss the mark when it comes to growing our businesses?
I love working with creatives, whether it's writers or videographers or photographers or artists. And the one commonality I often see, it's not always, but very often see, is that they feel like they're above the marketing, they're above the business
Mm.
side. Like that's kind of like a necessary evil, or it's kind of like almost dirty or selling out or whatever. And to a creative, selling out is an insult, right? Whereas to a marketer, selling out is what you want to be, what you want to do. You want to sell out of your inventory, you want to sell out of whatever you're doing. And so I always found it bizarre that and I sort of, from a creative background myself, I was a classically trained musician. That's what I did initially as through university and all of that. But I found it bizarre that authors will spend years and years and years writing a book and just creating this amazing piece of work, and then they spend maybe a month or two on promotion and then move on to the next one. And I've kind of done the opposite. I wrote the book in a very short, compressed time period, and 2 years later, now we do more promotion of the book than we ever did on launch, and it's just getting stronger and stronger. And that's how you create a book that's a bestseller, right? Because so many people just do this big marketing splash. They get on a few podcasts, they do a few press releases or whatever, and then they move on to the next thing. Whereas to me, if you've got a gift to give the world and you've got a message to spread, you want to spend a lot of time and energy doing that.
That's really good. A lot of good nuggets in there. I feel like I'm listening to your book again. I'm like, God, I need to take notes, but I'm driving and I can't. It's sort of like if you build it, they'll come, right? Like you spend all this time. Man, I spent, my whole life. I went to school. I did all this stuff, and so I'm going to put it out there, and then people should find me and hire me because they should all want me now that they know that I'm out there. And it's like, oh man, the messaging, the culture, social media, we're all so just distracted. So as you're listening to the show, please know we're talking to you. I mean, I'm talking to me. It's like we can think that we created the best thing in the world, and maybe we did, but exactly what Allan is saying is like we have to have some kind of a strategy to help people discover it, because they're not going to just find it just because we put it on our website, because we put it on our Facebook page, because our mom loves it, she shares it to her friends. It's just not going to happen. So to whatever the time is that it took you to make that thing. I mean, I don't know what the math equation is, but you got to put in so much to help, especially if there's any chance that it could impact the lives of if it could help people. I mean, you have to work this thing. You have to get it in front of the people that you want to encourage and inspire and to speak to.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And, the caveat that I say to creatives and really anyone who just loves the technical thing of what they do is, if the only thing you ever want to do is the technical thing of what you do, just be a freelancer or go work for someone, really. Like, because there'll be someone who wants to employ someone talented, will pay them a lot of money, and then you just get to do what you love to do all day. There's, not everybody has to be a business owner. I used to think, you're either an entrepreneur or you're kind of a loser or whatever, but, some people, they're just, business is not right for them, because, they just want to do the technical thing. They're not interested in doing the business stuff. They love what they do technically, and, they're a butcher, baker, candlestick maker, hairdresser, videographer, whatever, and they just love the work, and that's all they ever want to do, which is great. You can either be an employee somewhere where someone will pay you a lot of money to do what you do, and you just focus on the creative stuff. I mean, that comes with its challenges as well. Or you can be a freelancer, but you don't have to not everybody has to run a business. So you need to first decide, is this the journey you actually want to go on? And then if the answer is yes, well, then let's talk about what's involved and what you've got to do from that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, because if you don't, I think a lot of people just maybe are kind of in that middle of like, well, they're kind of running a business as a freelancer, and they just feel like that's where they need to be. When exactly what you're saying, if you just take a step back and say, well, no, do I want to be a freelance? And that's fine. Like, we've hired people, to help us around the house or like here at the studio or whatever, and they just do that one thing. That's all they do. And that's great. And that's super helpful. And then there are the painting companies that, the guy started just painting and realized like, man, I could actually hire other people. I wouldn't have to paint like all these days or into the evening. And I'm going to do that. And then, realize like, wow, this is amazing. This works. Like I've got people that work for me. And that's what my hope is, that for the person that listens to the show that says, hey, maybe you're not sure if you're a freelancer, and maybe you're not sure if you're a business owner, or you don't know what to do. But if you decide, hey, I would love to not have to work 70 hours a week, 60, 90, whatever that thing is, or you would like to collaborate with other people, you'd like to lean on other people's creativity, or there's things inside of your job that you cannot stand doing because you're bad at it or it just takes too much time. If you're in that spot, then building a business that's where you want to focus your time and your energy. And in order to do that, there's a lot that comes with that. I'm curious, Allan, if like just off the top of your head, the approach, with what you teach, how does it work with a creative service based business like videography or filmmaking or whatever? I just feel like the idea of selling out, I resonate with that. I struggled creating this business to help filmmakers because they would think like, this guy's selling out. He's telling us, we need to focus on sales and marketing. I'm like, I know how icky that might sound to people, but I also know the flip side of experiencing what it means to have employees and have other people that are selling on my behalf. And for me to not have to, I don't work on Fridays anymore. And the only reason that is because I created a business that has given me some freedoms. I have people that are out there doing the things that I can't stand, people that are better at filming, people that are better at editing than me. And rewind 15 years, I would have never thought I'd be in this spot. So I understand the struggle to say, I'm a creative based business. Like, what are you going to tell me? How am I supposed to market in a way that appeals to people? I'm creative. The work that we do is creative. We don't do anything the same. So how do you encourage somebody that's like in my shoes to say like, dude, you're not, here's your you're a creative services based business, but here you can still benefit from this. And here's how.
Yeah, so it's really, and I think there really needs to be a mindset shift, because if you feel that marketing is icky or business is icky and all of that, then you're always going to struggle with that. So you really need to have a mindset shift, and understand what marketing really is and why you'd want to do it. Now, of course, like with anything, there is icky marketing. There are people who are spammy. There are people who are, doing the wrong thing. No doubt about it. But in my experience, good marketing, sustainable marketing, it's always based on building trust. It's always based on creating value, and it's always based on really doing the best thing for your audience. And so if you believe that you have something of value to give to the world, to share with the world, then you've got a right and a responsibility to actually get that message out there and sort of and really amplify that message. So really, you're probably doing something icky by not getting your message out there and sharing your gift with the world. And that's hugely important. And to me, the big mindset shift happened. I used to be my first business was in IT, and I was a dead broke IT guy, really good technically at what I did. So the few customers that I had just loved the work that we did. But we just didn't have enough of them. It was always kind of like a feast and famine. And one day I was, I was lucky enough to have a mentor at the time, and he was a very successful marketer, very successful businessman. And I was telling him my troubles. I was saying, look, we're so good, we're better than our competitors. In fact, our competitors sometimes would hire us to teach them the latest technical stuff, and they would run rings around us business wise, and we were struggling. And so I was telling him that, and he said to me, when does someone know that your product or your service is really good? And I said, well, obviously after they buy. And he said, well, before they buy, they only know how good your marketing is. And that was like a lightning bolt to me at the time. And that really caused a mindset shift. And he sort of went on and said, look, you can't think of yourself as an IT guy who does marketing. You've got to think of yourself as a marketer who just happens to sell IT services. And that's really served me very well throughout multiple businesses that I've built. The business I built after that was in telecommunications. And when I understood that, and that's when, that second business, we went from zero to being one of the top 100 fastest growing companies in Australia within 4 years. It's because I understood the role that marketing plays. It's an amplifier for what you do. It's a way for you to get your message out into the world. And nobody knows how good you are and how good your creatives are and how good your work is. They only know how good your marketing's until they buy from you.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the whole goal. It's like, let's get people to buy this so that they can.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have a good friend of mine. He's a realtor, Tom, if you're listening. He says, he's like, I'm a marketer first and I'm a realtor second. And I've never, I know a lot of realtors and have met, and nobody approaches it like that. And for him, like, that's what he focuses on. He's got like this, he walks people through houses using video and just kind of created this whole like thing. And it's great. It's a good niche. It's smart. And I think he's learned that from you. Well, so
it's a real mindset shift.
Yeah.
You've got to have that mindset shift. And again, that's assuming that you want to be in business for yourself. If you don't, then that's okay too. Just make that decision.
Yeah. Being proactive with that, knowing that that is a decision. That's good. So I don't know, maybe you can do this easily. I don't know how, but I would love for you to just to take us through the one-page marketing plan. How do you do that in a podcast form? That's not, we're going to be here for 7 hours and you guys, you're going to love it. It's going to be great.
It is a bit tricky, but I'll try and take you through in a short amount of time. But basically, if you were to visualize a single page split into 9 squares, so 3 lots of 3. So, and you can easily download a free copy of the one-page marketing plan canvas. It's just on my website, which is successwise.com, and I'm sure there'll be links and all of that
There will be
attached with it. But if you basically if you visualize 9 squares on a single page, and then each square takes you through the direct response marketing process. And so the first set of 3 is what we call the before phase. So the before phase is before someone even is aware that you exist. So the whole goal of this phase is to get awareness. So to get people to recognize that we exist and see that there's something that they might be interested in. And so the 3 parts of the before phase are selecting your target market. So we want to define exactly who we want to target. Number 2 is crafting your message for that target market. So what message is going to really resonate and make them feel, hey, that's for me. And then number 3 is the media that you're going to reach them with. So are you going to reach them through Facebook, YouTube, direct mail, email? And I usually recommend at least 4 or 5 different media that you use, because being too single source dependent is very, very dangerous. So that's the before phase, and then we move into the during phase. So the during phase is when someone kind of raises their hand and says, look, I'm vaguely interested in what you've got to offer. So maybe they've clicked on your Facebook ad, or maybe they've clicked through YouTube and they've landed on your website or whatever else. And so the 3 stages of the during phase are capturing leads, nurturing those leads, and then ultimately sales conversion. So we want to capture leads because we know that the vast majority of people who land on your website or phone in or inquire or whatever are not ready to buy today. We know they're going to be ready to buy maybe in 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, or whatever else. And everybody's kind of fighting for those 3% of people that are ready today. And that's fine. It's good to capture those, but we know that they're the minority. And so we'll have a lot of wasted opportunity if we don't capture leads, and then if we don't nurture them over time. And so nurturing them over time is educating them, giving them value, showing them what we can do for them, how we can serve them. And then ultimately sales conversion. Sales conversion is turning someone from a prospect to a customer for the first time. So where they give you their first dollar. And a lot of people think marketing ends there. We've got the sale, that's marketing over, right? So really, that's not the case. So the final phase is the after phase. And this is really where the money is made. It's after somebody has paid you your first dollar. And the 3 stages there are, number 1 is delivering a world-class experience. Number 2 is increasing customer lifetime value. And number 3 is orchestrating and stimulating referrals. So they're the 3 steps of the after phase. And really that's where the money is made, because you've done the hard work to acquire a customer. So now we want to figure out, how do we deliver a world-class experience so that we build a tribe of raving fans? We don't want just transactions. We want a tribe of raving fans. And then we think about, how do we increase their lifetime value? How do we give them more of what we've got to offer, or give them a higher quality version, or more quantity, or more quality, or whatever else? And then how do we orchestrate and stimulate referrals so that implies an active process. A lot of people kind of hope and pray for referrals, but I say it's really an active process. We can orchestrate and stimulate referrals, and I've got techniques to do that in the book.
I love it. Yeah. Oh man, super cool.
That's the very high level, and
It's
of
pretty
course.
impressive. Yeah, that did not take nearly as long as I thought it was going to. All of those phases make sense. My thing, when people come to me and they're like, "Hey, what's the quickest, easiest way to make some more money?" We're especially at this time of year, things are just slower, and so I'm always like, okay, well, let's see, lowest hanging fruit. Like, let's think through this. Well, the people that are most likely to buy from you are people that have already bought from you. So I would love if we just kind of spent like a couple minutes talking about this, the conversion phase, like this last phase where someone has already hired us before. So you're saying, if we can deliver some kind of world-class experience for them. I love that because I just interviewed Dan Cockrell, who worked at Walt Disney World for almost 2 decades. His dad was there forever. And that was what we talked about, was delivering a world-class experience. But then also, increasing lifetime value. I'm really curious to kind of hear some thoughts on what, as a video company, what does that look like? What could that look like? And then really, I mean, if there are any outside of, hey, you just need to ask for referrals. Love to just kind of hang out in this area a little bit. I think this would I think get some quick wins and get people thinking like, maybe this Allan guy is onto something, and maybe Ryan's smart too because he's listened to Allan, and maybe these guys are pretty smart.
For sure. So, so delivering a world-class experience. This is all about creating your tribe of raving fans. So, and this is the thing that just makes business so much easier, so much more pleasurable. And I'll give you an example of how I've used it in my business. So I've created a tribe of raving fans, people who love the one-page marketing plan process, people who, well, I'm glad you're one of them, Ryan, as well. And look at what we're doing now. So I'm on a podcast. We're reaching, I don't know how many thousands.
Millions. You said thousands. Millions.
Millions of people, right? And so how did that come about? Is it because, I cold called you or pushed myself on you or anything like that? No, it came by invitation. And literally every single day I open my email inbox and there are opportunities coming in. So there are people asking me to speak. There are people asking for coaching. There are people asking for my course, all sorts of things. And so it just makes business so much more pleasurable rather than, dreading kind of doing sales and marketing and making 50 cold calls or whatever it is. I mean, that would suck. Like, no wonder people hate sales and marketing when it's done that way, right? So it's really cool to be able to open my email inbox, and every day there are some opportunities coming in. And so that comes about by building a tribe of raving fans. So when I release a new product, I email my list, and I know that there are going to be a certain number of sales that come about just because there are people who just automatically will buy the next thing that I've got because I've built up that bank of trust and I've delivered good value in the past. And so that's really what it's about. And it was something that I really found to be true. And I think this is very, very important, that a lot of people think a dollar from dollars are equal. And so I call this the principle of the unequal dollar. So a dollar from someone who's a raving fan, who refers you, who pays on time, who's fun to deal with, is not equal to a dollar from someone who's just transactional, bought from you because you're the lowest cost price, or whatever else. Even though your bank manager will tell you those dollars are equal, they're not equal, right? So, and so you want to be building that tribe of raving fans, the person who's that promoter, the person who's really buying your next thing, the person who's fun to deal with, pays on time, doesn't complain, all those sorts of things. So, and that really comes down to target market selection. So that's really the very first block in the before phase. If we're targeting everyone, and there's a temptation to say, hey, we do videography, or I'm in medical, or I'm in legal. Hey, of course I can help everyone, right? Everyone's my target market. And that's a very big mistake, because you want people to say, hey, that is for me, and be able to target the audience very tightly. And also, um, have that person be a raving fan and deliver just an amazing experience. So, and an amazing experience will differ from business to business and industry to industry, but there are a few commonalities. So there's giving them what they want, selling them what they want, but giving them what they need. So that's number one. Another one is really just creating a bit of theatre around your products and services. Like a lot of people just either deliver the bare minimum or deliver it in a boring way. And so particularly creatives have the opportunity to really create some theatre around their products and services. So yeah, there are a few ways that I would really think about creating a world-class experience.
I love that. I always say, you know, early on when we did weddings, it was so much easier because it was such a very specific niche for us. I mean, we didn't just do weddings. We did luxury. We were after, you know, the high-end couple, people that had a lot of money, but also cared deeply about human beings. Like they loved story, and they loved the, you know, our sort of, I don't want to say irreverent, but almost irreverent approach to say like, hey, like we care about people deeply too. And so back then it was so easy to know how we could, you know, just listening to you say that this is part of knowing your tribe, who you're going after, because here we are all these years later where, you know, we fell in this trap for a long time where we're just like, well, we can do business, or we can do videos for like any business, right? We can do all sorts of different kinds. And so we've got different samples on our website of all sorts, you know, so we're not speaking to anybody. It's not like ringing, nobody's ears are ringing. So as we think, you know, we're revisiting this and thinking through like, okay, if we could pick a niche, you know, today, not weddings, but if we could pick a niche inside a business, it just makes it so much easier to say like, oh, well, every, you know, say it's a PR firm, every small boutique PR firm, like these are the things that we know resonate with them. So if we could deliver our stuff in a way that, you know, speaks to them, gets them excited, that's going to get them to think. But if we think that we can do that same thing for everybody, you know, our brides and grooms, the things that we would send them and that they would absolutely love would be very different from the, you know, we have some manufacturing clients. They would just be like, oh, why is this stuff so pretty? And what all this, like we would deliver, we had these boxes and we would put, what is this stuff? It's like, sort of like hay or straw, and we would pack everything. It'd be super pretty. These guys would be like, what in the hot dog? So I love that. I think that's super good. What about like increasing the lifetime value? Like I'm curious, like, you know, again, here we are, like, obviously knowing your niche is super, super important for any and all of this to work. How do we increase the lifetime value?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what we find is that about 10% of your audience would likely pay you 10 times more, and about 1% of your audience would pay you about 100 times more. And so if you don't have some ultra premium products or some higher level ticket items, you're leaving a lot of money on the table, because, you know, people get squeamish about having high-end products and services, but you know, you're leaving a lot. You may not sell many units, but they'll make a large proportion of your profit. It's kind of like if we think of like car companies like Volkswagen. They own many different brands, and at the top of the range is like their Bugatti range, where they sell cars for $3 million, right? And then at the low end, they've got your normal Volkswagens and Golfs and all of that sort of thing. And so if you think about that, and they've got everything in between, you know, they've got all the, you know, cars ranging from normal to luxury to ultra luxury to just insane. And so there's a reason that they do that, because they know that if they didn't have those ultra luxury products, that they'd be leaving a lot of money on the table. So you need to have a few tiers of service. So how can you service your client with either greater quality, greater quantity, greater frequency? Because it's highly likely that a client isn't buying your product in the right amount of quality, quantity, frequency, whatever it is. And it's incumbent on you to make sure that they get the result that they actually want, so that you know, you're actually giving them what they need as well as what they want. And so there's a few easy practical ways of doing this. So number one is increasing your lifetime value. Number one, increase your prices. So many people haven't increased their prices for a long time, and if you're not increasing your prices over time, you're actually because of inflation,
Oh,
you're actually paying yourself less and less over time.
yeah.
So if you're charging $2,000 for a video shoot today, and you were charging that same thing, you know, 3, 4, 5 years ago, now you've given yourself a pay decrease because, you know, over time there's inflation. Money's worth less over time. So number one is raising your prices. The next one up is upselling, as I mentioned. Like, you know, is the client really going to get the result that they need from your basic product? So can you sell them a higher quality version, a more quantity, more quality, more frequency, whatever it is? And so that we take them through the ascension. So if you need to have products and services that are in the higher tier. And uh, the other benefit of having higher tier products and services is that they make your lower price products look a lot more reasonable by comparison. So there's that kind of comparison effect. So there are a few ways. The other thing that I would say is you must run a reactivation campaign. So I'm sure everybody's got a list of clients that they've worked with in the past who haven't bought for a while, or maybe people that they've quoted in the past that had never went ahead. And so this is a gold mine that you're sitting on. So you want to run a reactivation campaign and say, hey, Ryan, are you still looking for a videographer for your PR firm? And you'll be very surprised to see that, you know, some responses come back, say, yeah, we actually are. The guy we've been working with, he's just been unreliable, or whatever, or yes, we're still in the market where we just never made a decision, or whatever else. So you've got a real wasted opportunity if you're not running a reactivation campaign on a pretty regular basis.
I love that, man. That is super solid. It makes me think of this one woman who I had reached out to. I said, "Hey, just, you know, you're at this company." I actually made a little video. I was on our website. There was no video on our website. She's a friend of mine, but I hadn't talked to her in a bunch of years, and and we shot her wedding actually a bunch of years ago. And it's just like, "Hey, like I'm on your site, and you guys have all this awesome stuff, all these great case studies, and you even have a podcast, but you have no video." I was
Yeah.
giving her a hard time, and she messaged me back after I sent her that video, and she's like, "Hey Ryan, you know, great to hear from you. You know, as you know, your friend, another video studio, his wife works here." And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I know. So she's like, you know, if we're gonna do video, we just kind of use him or whatever. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's totally cool. Like, but then literally the very next morning, I get this frantic voicemail from her. She says, "Ryan, okay, I know I said that we were, you know, using this, but 2 opportunities just came up for video, and I need to talk to you. Blah 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 blah." So exactly to your point, even people who think they have a solution, as
Yes.
if you plant the seed and sort of force them to remember, like, wait, we do have a video guy, but nobody really likes him. The stuff that he's doing is
Yes.
always,
Yeah.
it's never on time. It's ever, you know, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Um, Man, I said blah blah blah. I just did that like 2 times in a minute. That was maybe a
Yeah.
world record for me. But I love that idea of it. You said reactivation campaign, and I'm like, what is that? I think that's super solid. So the last part of this section is orchestrating referrals. You know, I would tell people you need to reach out, you need to ask people, but how? I'm sure you'll say it way more eloquently than I. And you have the floor, Alan.
Thank you. Well, look, the way most people do referrals, or at best, people ask for referrals, and that's great. You should ask, because one of the best ways to get what you want in life is to ask for it. Quite directly. So, and you know, very often it's just a matter of saying, "Hey, Ryan, you know, you are the perfect client for me, and you know, I love working with you. You know, is there anyone else that I'm going to do a great job for you? But look, we get most of our clients via referral, and you know, I'm sure birds of a feather flock together. So, you know, if you know anyone else in a similar position to you, then I'd love it if you'd refer me." So number one is the direct approach, and being a little bit bold about it. So not being kind of squeamish and all of that. The next thing is to understand is kind of this bystander effect that people have. You know, so a lot of people, the way that they ask referrals, they say, and you know, I've seen this in you know, business networking meetings or whatever. They say, "Hey, and if you know anyone who wants a videographer, you know, just send them to me or whatever. And of course, nobody pays attention to anyone, because who's everyone? Everyone is no one, right? So, in first aid training, when they say,
Mm,
they're very, very specific. They say, you point at someone with a green hat and you say, you go get a blanket. And then you point at another person and you say, you call 911. Why? Because of the bystander effect. Because if you just say, hey, someone get a blanket, someone call 911, everyone kind of looks at each other and
yeah,
thinks
yeah.
someone is someone else,
Yep.
right?
Mm,
So you want to be very, very specific. And this again comes back down to target market. You want to say, look, um, we do videography for boutique PR firms, and so the ideal firm for us is someone who is blah blah blah, right? So,
mm,
and so if you're being very, very specific, then that triggers something in people's
yes.
minds, that when they come across that situation, they think, oh, hey, Ryan does that,
Mm,
and so that will help trigger referrals a lot more effectively. And the other thing is to think about is, who has your clients before you? Because we tend to think about clients in isolation, but our transaction with our clients is probably one of 100 things they're doing that day. So they're seeing their doctor, their lawyer, their accountant, their mother, their whatever else, and we're one of 100 things that they're doing that day. So who has who is spending money trying to acquire a client before us? So if you're a videographer who does weddings, I mean, it makes sense that someone who organizes weddings, or someone who does catering, or someone who does whatever, so they're probably spending money on YouTube, on Facebook, on Google, trying to acquire those clients. So if you can get together and work with people who are complementary but non-competitive, that can be a massive advantage, where you can literally reduce your cost of customer acquisition by a massive amount. So then you can share marketing costs, you can refer people to each other, you can pay each other a finder's fee, or whatever is right for you in your industry. So that's really, really powerful, I find, as well. Joint ventures or referral partnerships, or thinking through, who has my clients before I
mm.
do.
Yeah, that's great. Like, one example is web companies. It's like,
Perfect.
for us, if I were to partner with other web designers, web developers, branding agencies, like all these people that are kind of going through a new process in
Yeah.
their business and getting
Yeah.
ready to, have brand new marketing material, guess what else they need? They need a video.
Yes.
So for me
Yes.
to build a relationship with, these kinds of people, I think that's really smart. And I think I figured that out accidentally, like when I first start, like very early on, and then realized, like, oh my gosh, like I heard a new guy, he's our operations guy, Tyler, and he calls them channel partners, people that,
Yep.
essentially you build a relationship with them and they've got your people, like they're working with your people. So you don't even have to sell yourself a lot of times to those people, because they trust the person who they're already in relationship with. And they're telling their clients, say, hey, you need to check out Ryan, you need to check out their video stuff. It's solid. He's great. And they just come and say, like, okay, we were told we're supposed to hire you. Those are the best, right?
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And in some industries, this is absolutely the norm. Like in the IT industry, selling through the channel is the main way that sales are made. So very rarely do top level vendors like a Microsoft or a Cisco or whatever else sell directly to companies. They always sell through the channel, through a channel partner. And it's great to take some of the things that are working in other industries and apply them to yours. And the exciting thing is, you don't need 100 different referral partners to build a really successful business. You only need a handful, of good producing partnerships. And if you spend time developing those, they can be very, very profitable.
Mm. Silly as it might seem, one of the things that has stuck with me from your book is the bystander effect. When you're talking about like somebody being at the scene of an accident, and I'm like,
Yes.
oh my gosh, like I will never, yeah, like if I'm ever there, I'll know exactly. I need to point, I need to call out, because otherwise, that's just what we do. We're just like this. It
Yeah.
makes me think my mom is really involved with her BNI group, and there's this one realtor woman there, and the last time I went with my mom to this meeting, the woman stands up and she, everybody's supposed to say, hey, like who are you looking for? Like, who can
Yes.
we, who do you, we know, I can't talk, that might be able to help you. And she gets up and she says, if you know of a young, recently married couple
Yes.
looking for a house in, this particular
Yes.
city. I would
Yes.
love to be introduced to them. And I'm like, boy, that's like pretty focused. Like who out of us, but for that one person that might think like, oh yeah, like,
Yeah.
or, maybe they're not young, maybe they're old but it's
Yes.
just because it's focused and it's not a generic, hey, you know anybody that needs a house? It's like, no, on to the next person. What do you need? Yeah,
Yeah.
on to the next
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. Yeah.
The,
Exactly.
the the bystander effect. I think that's really solid. So, Allan, for you, what take me to the moment like in your own life and in your own experience as you're, serial entrepreneur, you're doing this work, you have figured out a system that works, that is super helpful. What was the light bulb moment? What was the moment in time? Where were you? What were you doing when you realized like, oh my gosh, I think I've got something here that's not just helpful for me, but could actually be helpful for others?
Well, it was. I mean, I built the first company, which was my IT company, and like I said, I struggled for the better part of a decade till I figured out this process from different sources and different material and things like that, and different mentors and coaches and things like that. And I sold that business for more money than I'd ever seen in my life. That was fantastic for me. And then I went straight into building another business, which, like I mentioned, in 4 years we went from zero to being one of Australia's fastest growing companies. And I ended up selling that, and again that built a large a large exit for me, which was really nice. And then I had people just kind of, I had people constantly contacting me saying, hey, can we catch up for lunch and I'll pick your brain, or can
Mm.
we, and I ended up running out of lunch,
Yeah.
lunch spot availability. And I thought, well, there's something to this,
Yeah.
right? So, and that's really when I started coaching people in the marketing process that I'd learned. And the thing that I started to try to get my clients to do was to put together a marketing plan, because that was incredibly important for me. And I got a lot of resistance, a lot of pushback, because people would say, too difficult, too long, too expensive. And, traditionally that has been the case where, marketing plans are like, I remember my first one was like 30 pages long, and I hired a consultant, and there's charts and
Yeah.
graphs and projections and all sorts of stuff. And, although the going through that process was valuable to me, the actual plan, it just got shoved in the top drawer of my
Mm.
desk, and I never saw it till we were moving out of the office, and I dusted it off, tossed it in the trash. And so part of that process of coaching my clients, I tried to figure out a way that they could together a sophisticated marketing plan in an easy to put together, easy to understand fashion. And that's where I came up with the one-page marketing plan process. So it was a process long before it was a book. And I got a lot of people now who'd never put together a marketing plan ever. They were putting together a
Yep.
marketing plan because it was easy. They could do it literally in a single page. They could, in 20 or 30 minutes, put together a sophisticated direct response marketing plan, and that was a game changer. And so that's why a few years later I put together the book to get it out to a wider audience. But really, it came from a place of necessity, because I wanted my clients to go through a marketing planning process like I had gone, because it'd be incredibly helpful. And so that's why I came up with a one-page marketing planning process.
I love it, man. Cool story. We're almost done here, but I am really curious. You said something a little bit earlier that made me think like, oh, I need to ask this question.
Sure.
For video companies, one person studio, 5 person, whatever, how important is it in this world of marketing and trying to grow your business? How important is it to have some kind of an email list?
It's incredibly important. So you want to build what's called a permission asset, and a permission asset is something where you're building a database of people who want to hear from you, right? Who want to see your latest piece of work. And in fact, this is a great example for creatives. Uh, I don't know if you know the cartoonist Hugh McLeod, and so he was just a struggling cartoonist. Now is a multi-millionaire, right? And he did that literally just through an email list. He does cartoons for corporates. Like, you'd never think of a cartoon would be selling to a cartoonist would be selling to corporates, but he does like these prints, and he does like you can get him to do a custom cartoon for your organization. And He just did that through his mailing list. He started sending a cartoon every day to his mailing list and building that and building that. And of course, people on that mailing list work at different organizations. And now people commission him to do like a motivational cartoon or something for their company, or they buy prints and things like that. I've bought a few of his prints as well. And, you know, he's obviously a talented creative, but you know, he's gone from someone who was just a struggling cartoonist to a multi-millionaire just through building a permission asset by keeping in touch with people, showing off his work to people who want to see his work. And I'm on his mailing list. I get a cartoon from him every single day, and sometimes one that really resonates. I go and buy one of his prints. So and they're not cheap. So he does very well. So that's an example of why you'd want to do that. So there are people who would love to see your work, who would love to see your new stuff and buy some of your stuff as well. And I know a lot of people say, hey, just build up a YouTube channel or whatever if you're in video and all of that. And that's fine. I'm not against that. But you want to be the landlord, not the tenant, right? YouTube can change the rules, the algorithm at any time. And then, you know, you're not ranking or people aren't subscribing or whatever else. You know, people have had the rug pulled out from under them many times by Facebook, by Google or whatever. You know, they change an algorithm or they start charging more for reaching your audience or whatever it is. So you want to be the landlord, not the tenant. So you want to own that asset. And so in your business, an email list or a physical mailing list or whatever, that's an asset that you own. Google can't take that away from you. Facebook can't stop you from using it. So that's powerful, very, very powerful. And that can be a game changer for businesses.
That's really good. I think back to my early days, we would do a monthly newsletter and we would share, hey, here's our latest wedding film that we did. I had a blog that I maintained. We got lots of great SEO from that. But then as we transitioned to be working with corporate clients, nobody cared, right? Unless it was like the same industry, the same sort of need. They didn't care to look at these random videos that we wanted to share with people. So, you know, kind of one step further, it's like case studies or things that would resonate, you know, with your audience. Think through, don't just send your, hey, this is our favorite project. Kind of like talk about the why behind it and like what's different about it, or like what would make your target audience want to lean in and actually watch it. Because again, you can create it, you can put it out there and just expect people to watch it. But if you don't give them a reason, if they don't understand like how is this going to make their life better? But if you tell them, hey, if you haven't thought about, you know, a sales video, replacing a salesperson on your team or adding to the sales team. And here's an example of a piece that we did that has helped this company sell, you know, $1 million worth of their widgets. For a company that wants to hire another salesperson might consider like, oh, maybe we could actually do video. I'm curious to see this. So if you're creating helpful stuff, like Allan's saying, stuff that's going to get people to say like, yeah, this is relevant, this is helpful. You know, having an email list, geez, we could talk about this for a long time. It's super important. Start if you haven't, and the best time to start, you know, if you haven't been doing it over the last however many years you've been in business, the next best time to start is today. So thank you for that nugget. Allan, where can people find you? How can they get your book? How can they follow all of the things that you've got going on?
Yeah, so look, the best way to follow along is probably on my website, successwise.com. You can grab a free copy of the one-page marketing plan canvas. If you want to get the book, it's wherever books are sold, Amazon, of course, Barnes & Noble, everywhere else.
Audible.
Audible, absolutely, yes, the audio book. Actually, it's very, very popular in audio format. I don't know why that is, but it just is. So you can get it on Audible and listen to it. So yeah, wherever books are sold. And yeah, I'd love to connect with the audience and keep in touch.
Awesome. Love it. Any last thought here as you're thinking about, hey, these are filmmakers, these are people creating cool content, have an opportunity to leave their mark, their impression in the world, but only if they can build something that is sustainable, right? Like they need to build a business. What encouragement or what insight, what nugget can you leave us with today?
The thing I'd leave you with is the thing I think we started with is that mindset shift. You're not a filmmaker. You're not a videographer. You're a marketer of films. You're a marketer of videography services. That mindset shift alone will make a massive difference to you and your business.
Allan, this was awesome, man. I'm so glad we got to do this. Really, really loved our time together. Learned a ton. I'm excited for kind of your next, sounds like a next chapter, no pun intended, in your work, in your business. And I know you're definitely having an impact. So super excited for you to continue doing that. And let's keep in touch.
For sure, right? I'd love to.